was pretty good, but it's my turn now.
Excuse me if I sound like I have a cold, I kinda do. Regardless, does not matter. We're gonna keep it going, we're gonna fight through this, we're gonna surf the wave to entertainment glory, to entertainment nirvana, and to the top of the podcast charts. I am Andrew, and welcome to the third episode, and also the return of the sparring session, where I talk to people who I honestly find interesting and do things that I find awesome. And today, I'm talking to a YouTuber. You know how it is. You know who it is. It is HORRORSTUDIO1. He was a great guest. I was so happy that I was able to land this interview. He's a great guy, down-to-earth guy. Found him on Twitter, and we discussed this, and a couple days later, we did this show. Shouts out to him. I urge you to check out his channel, HORRORSTUDIO1. Find me on Twitter at IFoundAndrew. And be sure to check out the other shows. We got Real Roulette coming out every Thursday, I guess. I don't really know. Every Wednesday. And we got Wrestling with Valiance, of course, coming out every single Saturday now. And that's about it. Thank you so much for listening to the intro. And here we go. I'm going to press play. And here we go. Where we're going to get famous. Let's go. And with me today is a guest, a very special guest. Somebody that I have been a fan of, somebody that I have been wanting to talk to for a while now, off and on, but I've been a fan of his work ever since I found it in, I think, July or August. With me today is HORRORSTUDIO1 live from Toronto. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Magnificent.
Great. So let's get right into it. Now, you have this channel, HORRORSTUDIO1, as I just mentioned, and just explain to the uninitiated, what do you do?
Well, basically, I'm one of the YouTube horror narrators that are out there right now. I started my channel back in about early May, actually. So when you found me, I was like 2 or 3 months into the YouTube thing.
Right.
And most of my content is basically just horror stories, true scary ghost stories, with like a background. But the majority of the content, what people come for mostly, is the audio portion. So the music and the way I tell these ghost stories is what people want. And I've been doing it for 11 months now, and it's kind of become my full-time job as well. I've quit my work, actually, to do YouTube on a full-time basis besides going to school. So I'm really proud of what I do, and it defines me in a certain way. You know, my presence on the internet is my YouTube channel, basically. HORRORSTUDIO1, go support.
Absolutely, I'm a big fan. What was I thinking? Is that the way that I discovered the channel was you started off with these 12 true scary stories from Asia, and there is you did one on I believe it was Japan. You've done one on Thailand. I believe one of them was the Singapore one. Is my favorite. The Singapore. I've rewatched it about 2 or 3 times. It's great. It's very good, and you know the stories. I mean, you found them on Reddit. That's correct? You find them on Reddit or whatever. I don't really know. How do you do that?
Actually, a lot of the stories, I find a lot of them on Reddit, actually. But for the 12 Asian ghost stories, there's a bunch of sites that are specifically for Asian ghost stories, which makes it a lot easier to find. Like, it's very concentrated, so you can basically go by country on what ghost stories you want. So if I wanted to do a 12 Singapore ghost stories, I would just click on Singapore and find, 12 good ones to tell. That's for the Asian ghost stories. But for the other stories I narrate, like just typical ghost stories or stalker stories, I use Reddit a lot as well, because it is a really good website. So,
absolutely. I mean, just the Asian stories, to me, you know, I'm a huge horror fan. We mentioned it before we started the show.
Yeah.
And Asian horror especially is just so insane. I mean, I don't really know how else to explain it. What interested you in, doing these Asian stories more than, say Europe or, Latin America or whatever?
Actually, one interesting fact is that I haven't done an Asian ghost story in a while now, actually.
Right, yeah.
But I'm actually one's coming out next week, and I'm tackling China, because I haven't done China before. So it's gonna be 12 Chinese ghost stories from Asia, and it's gonna be next week. But what really got me into it, well, first of all, I'm Asian,
Right.
and I've grown up kind of listening to these, watching these Asian, because I'm from Hong Kong, and Hong Kong.
You're from Hong Kong.
I'm from Hong Kong.
Okay.
Like when I was 2, I came to, because I live in Canada now, but my roots are from Hong Kong, and they're known for movies, right, in Asia. And ever since I was a kid, I would watch all these like scary Hong Kong ghost movies, and it would be in my brain. And that was my concept of, the paranormal, actually, when I was a kid, was these Asian ghosts. And I always found them, in my opinion, more terrifying than, the North American version of the ghost or whatnot. So I've always wanted to do that, to narrate them, because I realized that no other website has done that. Like most of the YouTube channels narrate ghost stories, but no one's really dived into Asia yet, which I found kind of interesting. And I was, you know what? I'll just take what my roots basically and try to show it to the YouTube community basically.
Totally. I mean, and as you just said, yeah, Asian stories are they're more scary. They're, they're more threatening,
Yeah.
In terms of the kind of the science of the paranormal, you look at the two schools of thought, of the two kinds of ghosts, rather, the residual hauntings and the intelligent hauntings. And it seems to me, and I could be so wrong, there's so many stories from Asia, from the Far East, that really are more of the intelligent, but not just that, more, they'll attack you. Or if you go into this house, you'll be followed and killed by a grudge or whatever. What was the catalyst of you even being interested in the paranormal? Because I know, everyone has a story. Everyone has their story of what made them a fan, or someone at least, wanting to study the paranormal. What was it to you that really made you think this is something that I could be, not even do the channel, but it being a hobby in the first place?
Well, if you're just talking about like the paranormal in general,
yeah.
I would have to go with the movies, basically. Like the Asian movies I used to watch as a kid. Like, because when I was a kid, I used to watch so many of these movies. Like, my mom and dad were crazy. I have to say that. Like, for a little kid, we would watch movies every night together when I was a kid, because I slept with my mom and dad when I was like 4 or 5. And we would watch all kinds of films. But the thing that they wanted, like, because they thought that they knew I liked it, so they kept on renting these, like, low budget, like Asian films that had like it was really low budget if you look back at it now, but at the time it kind of just brainwashed me. Basically, it got me so interested into that for the rest of my life, the image of the ghost, or just a talking point I would love to talk about with my friends, would be the paranormal. It turned me into that, basically. So when some people come up to me and they're like, "Oh, do you have like a real ghost experience by yourself? Is that why you got into narrating, blah, blah, blah?" It's not really that. It's just because ever since I was a kid, I was watching these films. The films got me into it, really. Like, I've never really seen a ghost in my life, thankfully.
Okay, wow, okay.
So, I mean, it's not like, oh, man, I have, the sixth sense or some shit like that. And can we swear on this? Sorry.
Yeah, no, you're good. Yeah, don't worry about it.
Oh, shit. All right. No, but it's not like a real thing. That's because I'm like a happy person, I think, so I don't draw this kind of negative energy a lot. It's really just the films and that got me into the paranormal, if you will, if you want to even call it that. Sure.
It's funny. I've talked to several people in my life about asking this question, because it's not really a niche kind of genre or a niche kind of interest. There are a lot of people who are very interested in the paranormal. And, a lot of people are like, well, I used to hear ghost stories, or I saw a ghost when I was 5, and I needed to find out what it all means. And, for me, I totally see what you're saying, because when I was a kid, I was watching horror movies. I was interested in well, maybe not even the horror movies, but just kind of like the strange kind of...
Which films did you watch?
Well, that's a good question. The Halloween movies. I mean, not really ghosts, paranormal, but kind of like the idea of a force of nature that decides to just...
Final Destination.
Final Destination, hey, possibly that... I saw that when I was like 10 or 11.
Yeah, right.
But, the catalyst for myself was a show called Ghost Hunters, which came out in the early 2000s. Actually, if I were to, I tell a lie. The main catalyst was there was a show called A Haunting. It was this British ghost hunting show from England. And I watched it, and it wasn't that good at all. It was actually kind of crappy. But it kind of was interesting because I'm like, these guys are going into a house, or they're going into a castle, or a restaurant or whatever. And, they're shouting into the dark, and they have all these crazy contraptions that are trying to catch something that may or may not even exist. Right. So I went into it kind of from that way. Yeah. And I'm not even really a science guy. I'm not a fan of science necessarily, but the kind of the mechanics of what they were doing was fascinating. Ghostbusters blew my mind when I was younger, but the idea of like ghosts actually existing and all of that, started when I was watching shows like, again, A Haunting and Ghost Hunters, and there's so many others that it's kind of a flooded market by now, but. You took my next question, because I was going to ask you if you had ever experienced anything.
Well, actually, I actually did. I said I never saw a ghost or confirmed, but I can tell like a short story.
Go ahead.
Like, there was this one time, I've told it on my own channel numerous times, I think, but the closest or the most confirmable time I've ever, experienced something weird was there was this time during my life where me and my friends, it was, I think, nearing the end of high school. And then we would basically like to drive around town telling ghost stories. Just the three of us, actually, me and my two friends. And my friend would be driving the car, and we were parking like this weird like parking lots and shit like that. And we did this for like a couple of weeks. And then I was getting really, like chills and strange vibes, right? But we didn't really stop. We kept doing this for the next couple of weeks. Until one time, the guys said they wanted to come over to my house and do the same thing. So we weren't going to do it in a car in a parking lot or near a park somewhere. We were going to do it in my house. And I was like, cool, you know what? That's fine. I mean, we'll just hang out and stuff. So we went down to my basement on the ground level of the basement. There's no light in the basement. And then the only light that we had actually was the TV. So we were doing our usual thing, just like telling ghost stories. And we turned on the TV and we used the static. It was like the static, that kind of screen. The white light from that was basically the only light we had in our whole basement. And we had a long hallway in the basement to the staircase that goes up to the living room. And we were just sitting there, the three of us, talking as we usually would. When suddenly, just as my friend was about to get to the main point of the story, like the punchline of the ghost story, the TV turns off. And we're like, okay, that's weird, right? We thought we were fucking with each other or something. Mm-hmm. And then we were doing the same thing again. The second ghost story, we turn on the TV, the static again. Second ghost story, my friend's about to reach the punchline, and then there was and then the TV turned off again. So it did this 2 to 3 times. I think by the third time it happened, the three of us were like, okay, let's stop doing this. Let's go. And
go ahead.
No, and the thing that pisses me off now is that every time I go to my own basement, I'm freaked out. But it's like, and these guys are scot-free. They don't remember anything. But I'm like, yo, man, I have to live with this now. And I'm afraid of my basement. I'm afraid right now as I tell this story, really, because, it's the same house I've been living in for years. But, that was the closest thing, and I'm getting chills right now, actually, as I say this. So.
Well, I'm sorry about that. Did not mean to, dredge up that memory there. But you, I think I remember you actually telling that story because you told that on one of the unedited podcasts that you did back in the day. And actually, those the Asian stories what made me was like, oh, this is kind of cool. The unedited podcast was what made me. It was like, these are cool, because again, Creeps McPasta and Mr. Creepypasta and Corpse Husband, they do great stuff. They have great videos, they have great narrations, and they've read some good creepypastas. And you that's not necessarily what you do, but you've done them in the past. But these unedited podcasts were very interesting. I think that they were. There was one that I remember you talking about, and I remember it was you telling a story about the suicide forest in Japan.
Yeah.
And I remember I was house sitting. I was actually dog sitting I was watching over a dog for about a week, and I was listening to this story. There was a big windstorm that was going on, and I'm like, man, this is kind of creepy. So I was, kind of looking up kind of some other stories on the suicide forest. And now I'm an expert at this point. And then there's a movie, The Forest, that came out.
Mm-hmm.
That was a big disappointment for me. But I guess it was for me. It was.
I didn't watch it yet.
The thing is that I went into it. Hey, it's a January horror film. What are you gonna expect?
Yeah.
As sad as that sounds, but I went into it. I was like, okay, I'm ready for some garbage here. But it really, it wasn't that bad. I will say it wasn't as bad as I kind of built it up in my head, but kind of a disappointment considering I'd heard all these really creepy stories from YouTubers who were talking about this forest.
Yeah, do you mind if I just go on a bit of a tangent here, actually?
Sure.
Basically, I want to thank that movie, actually, because after that movie came out, all my videos about like Suicide Forest and all those ones, the view count exploded.
Oh, did it?
Every one of I was like, why is this getting my second video I made was about Suicide Forest. Like, this is not the podcast. This is like way before the podcast. And it had like 2,000 views, okay? But then I've been getting like notifications. I'm like, holy shit, this thing's getting like 10,000 views a day. And I think it was because people were looking for, like the forest, and it was getting them interested in the topic or something. And they would click my video too. So I just had that video right now has like 80,000 views in total. It just helped that thing explode so much. Just that video though. And I think it's from the forest and how people were like just trying to find a trailer or something, but found my video.
Sure. And they were like, oh, okay.
Yeah. So I want to thank the forest. Actually, they just helped me out there, man. Made me some more money.
There you go. Thank you, Suicide Forest in Japan. So you also started doing. I mentioned earlier you started doing a lot of creepypasta reads. Mm-hmm. And, I've seen so many channels who've done that. Probably the most prolific for me, in my personal opinion, I mean, Mr. Creepypasta, of course, as I've mentioned a couple times, but have you ever heard of a channel called Some Ordinary Gamers?
I know them,
okay.
But I'm not a fan.
Oh, you're not? Okay, that's fine. Hey, to each his own. I am a moderator on his wiki, actually, and imagine all the crap that you've seen. What drew you to creepypasta? I mean, I guess because it is kind of a horror story, kind of it's part of the horror lineage, of from campfire stories to horror films to creepypasta. What drew you to that? To the whole world, because it's a big world. I mean, there's a lot you can read, a lot of good, a lot of bad. So what drew you to, because I see the first creepypasta you have is, what is it called? I've Always Loved You. So,
I actually wrote that. I wrote that myself.
You actually wrote that yourself?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's all. So you started reading your own.
That was the point.
Okay, that makes sense.
Cause okay, why I started creepypastas? Well, basically, I've always listened. Actually, okay, but before, I think it was 2014 or something. I think it should be 2014. I didn't know what creepypastas were.
Okay.
And I'm pretty sure creepypastas came out in like 2009 or 2010, if I'm not mistaken. I think around that time, okay?
I think you're right.
But I never knew about that stuff. I was online and I was looking for like ghost stories online or whatnot. And I stumbled upon actually Creeps McPasta. And he's actually my idol because he's the reason why I really got listening to creepy. I'm like, yo, this guy's voice sounds so good. Like, it's like silk. It's so smooth, like just how smooth he is. And then I started listening to him a lot. And I mean, I would be hardcore listening to him. Like, I would be on the bus. I would listen to him to go to sleep. It would be to the point where my girlfriend was like, why are your headphones on? Like, just go to sleep or whatnot. And I would be listening to Creeps McPasta. So I was like obsessed with his channel. And I think I've watched like every video he has. After a while, I've always, this is a long story though. by the way.
No, it's fine. Hey, go ahead. Take your time.
Okay, well, this has nothing to. Okay, this tangent kind of has nothing to do with the world of creepypasta, but it's kind of why I jumped into YouTube. Basically, I've always wanted to do singing. Okay, this is weird. I've always wanted to do singing. Okay, and I've always thought I was a good singer. So there was this singing competition that was happening around the time I first started my channel, but this was before I started my channel. And there was a singing competition that was, always going on. And it was a big singing competition. It's an Asian singing competition. And if you win, you get a record deal. So I was taking singing classes. I took 2 separate singing classes per week just for this competition. And I was really confident and I thought I was going to win, okay? So I go there and I worked out too and all that kind of stuff. I was 22. And then I go there and then, of course I don't get in. I barely get, I don't even get in the first round basically, right? There was like 200 people going and they only take like 20 or something, right? And it was my first competition. So I was really, confident that I was going to make it. But of course I didn't make it. And that kind of made me realize that I really love to perform. And I was like, I love to perform, but the thing is I have no platform for me to perform, right? And I was like, why don't I just start a YouTube channel? I was like, why don't I just create my own platform? Rather than have these judges, granted they're, experienced or whatnot, but they basically choose who they want to choose. There's no criteria.
Politics.
Yeah, I mean, and there was, and to be honest, because I saw, I'm not being bitter here, but there were some people that got in, and then I was like, oh yeah, but her mom knows the guy that owns this place or something. But the thing was, why do I have to wait for people to discover me and give me the chance to perform? I'm like, fuck it, let's just do my own thing. So I was like, okay, then what am I good at? I'm good at singing, but I was like, but did I want to do singing? I was like, no, I mean, there's no way for me to do singing every single week or something like that. So I was like, what do I really love to do now? I'm like, okay, well, I love to listen to Creeps Like Pasta. And I was like, okay, well, let's try to do that. And I've always loved to write. And then my first thing was actually to write my own creepypastas and then narrate my own creepypastas. So the first few creepypastas I actually have on my channel, like the first 10 or like 5 or 6 or something, they're all written by me.
So you've had I've Always Loved You. You've had The Taxi That Keeps Following Me Home.
That's mine as well. Yeah.
You've had The Last Thing You See Before You Die.
Yeah, that's me.
Okay. You've had The Childhood Photo.
That's me.
The Water Faucet.
That's me.
And then the next one, if you made this, then this changes the whole complexion of this whole thing. Normal porn for normal people.
That's my friend.
Are you serious? Are you serious? Wow.
No, is that no? But after that, it's no. I wrote some after as well.
Right.
But it was actually normal porn for normal people that basically gave me the confidence that maybe my channel would get some recognition, because I think it's because of the thumbnail or something. That was my first video to get to 2,000 views.
That's a nice thumbnail.
Right, and I think that's why people were clicking on it. But then they would leave after like 1 second if you check like the stats.
Sure.
They'd click it and they're like, what the fuck is this guy talking?
That's not normal porn.
Yeah.
No, seriously though, that is a crazy story. Very famous, you know, in the community, obviously, but disturbing as hell. I mean, my God, but I don't know. I don't know. Whoever your friend is probably.
No, it's not my friend.
He's got some messed up thoughts. Oh, he's not your. Okay.
Yeah, that was a joke. No, I have no idea who wrote it, but
okay.
Yeah.
So, damn, what was my next question? I don't know if I have any other questions.
I think I answered like the next 3, 4.
I think you did. Damn it, I think you did. No, it's fine. So, okay, here's a question.
Yo.
With the whole creepypasta community and the fact that you've written a couple, several, means that you are obviously part of the community. What is your favorite creepypasta?
1999.
Yeah, that's a good choice. My personally is Russian Sleep Experiment. Always been so weirded out by that whole story. Yeah. But what to you makes 1999 the best one?
Well, first of all, it's by my idol. Well, no, I mean, he didn't write the story, but
he's the one who read it first, or he was one of the first big readers, right?
Yeah, he was actually. And the thing was, I think that was one of the first videos I watched of Creeps Like Pasta as well. And I thought that it was his own story.
Sure.
Like it,
Oh,
it
yeah.
it was it had that effect on me where I was like, holy shit, he must have wrote this, right? Like he must have friggin' wrote this, but of course not, because the story takes place in like Canada, and he lives in the UK, I think. But
Yeah, I think so.
that's kind of the other reason why I like 1999 is because it takes place in Canada, because I'm from Canada, and the story itself, I mean, just the setting, right? The places he was talking about, I think there was like Burlington and Waterloo, like those places. I know where they are. I've been there. Like, so when I heard that with Chris McPasta narrating it, it felt like, holy shit, this is like my friend, like my actual friend telling me the story.
Right.
Because every place he was talking about was in Ontario, and I live in Ontario. And also the character was born, I think, the same year that I was born as well. So it just felt so close to me that I was like, holy shit, this has to be my favorite,
Is this
right?
about me? Is this
Yeah,
story
no,
about
no.
me?
Okay, I'll tell you one thing too. In the story, he says that, the story's about the channel on the TV, right? The
Right.
old TV he had in his room. When I was his age, I had the same TV in my room. It wasn't the same TV, but he said it was like a crappy TV that could pick up channels that other TVs couldn't. I had that TV in my room when I was a kid. So when I was listening to that, I was like, holy shit, Canada, born in the 90s, TV. And then he would say the names of the cities. I was like, holy shit, I've been there.
Wow.
Pickering, like I've been there. Like I was just there yesterday or something like that. I was like, okay, so this is insane. And I was so drawn to it because of that. And I wish they would make a update to that, actually. Like, hurry up.
Yeah, it ends with, complete cliffhanger. We don't know where the guy is. We don't know, what's going on. That's a creepy story. That's a very good story. Very long story, but it really draws your attention throughout. So yeah, I mean, and for me, Russian Sleep Experiment, just the fact that it's all about, because I've written a couple pastas myself.
Oh yeah?
And
Nice.
yeah, I had a little bit of a thing going on a couple years ago where I I decided, I was like, hey, what the hell, I wrote a couple. I wrote one that was it was a creature that I wrote it was called the Ombra, and what it was a creature that the whole pasta was not really a story. It was much more of I was a big SCP fan, the SCP Foundation. I was really interested in the realism because I'm a huge fan of like kind of realistic horror, and the creature that I made, so this is like my first one I ever wrote, was based on this creature that lived in my area, trying to kind of create a monster for my area. And it was supposedly the owner of the rake, trying to tie that in there. And I was like, this is gonna go over like nothing. It's gonna go over like a fart during a funeral. But people were like, no, this is actually pretty cool. Doesn't really seem that forced. So that made me keep going, and I wrote another one about this marriage that ends when when the wife finds the ability to use 100% of her brain, kind of like Lucy but horror, and that was kind of a weird experiment. Didn't really work out necessarily, and then I just kept going. And I'm a huge fan of kind of making ones about dreams and sleeping. So I made one about lucid dreaming. I made one about sleep paralysis, and it's just fun to do. It's a fun thing to do. I'm not like that great of a fiction writer by any means, but I was on a small kind of level, kind of a smaller website, the Some Ordinary Gamers Wiki, and there's a solid group of guys and girls that were, just sending stuff out every single week, and trying to best each other, and trying to see whoever won the pasta of the month was going to be read by the YouTube guy, Mudahar. So, kind of something to shoot for. So we had some just phenomenal ones. I think Funny Mouth came from our that group. I think that was one of them, and there's some others. But
How many people are sorry, no. How many people are running that whole like brand? Do you know? Like
well,
Or a lot, right? I'm guessing because I've seen a bunch of people. Like there was one that does like deep web videos, and there's like a bunch of them.
The YouTube channel is one guy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's one guy.
Huh.
I think it used to be like two or three guys, but I think that kind of ended. So now it's just one guy, Mudahar. He reads all the pastas.
He's a brown guy, right?
Yeah, I think he's in your neck of the woods. I think he's in either Toronto or he's in in one of those he's either in Toronto or he's in Montreal. He's in one of the other. I think he's in Toronto. Regardless, I kind of lost interest a little bit, kind of in creepypastas in general. I think it was around the time that Slender Man just became a meme.
Yeah, 2011 or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. It was like, oh, Slender Man's just completely ruined right now. You know, this is around the time when the games were getting really popular.
Yeah.
And it was becoming popular with like the rest of the world, and I was like,
Like, it wasn't
now
that niche anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Because I never felt like that before. I was always like, oh, come on, like, oh, they're just butthurt because like it's now in the masses. But I was like, no, Slenderman was ours, man. Slenderman and Jeff the Killer. I was never a big fan of Jeff the Killer, but because just the story is just not very good. You know, it's just the picture's scary. But
it was the photo. I actually, the video I just uploaded, I used Jeff the Killer as the thumbnail.
I saw that. Yeah, absolutely.
Just self-promotion again. Go check it out.
Self-promotion is completely invited here on the sparring session. And there's some other ones that became kind of more famous. You know, Squidward's Suicide became, kind of a big one. Yeah. Sonic.exe, I can't stand that one anymore. But there have been some ones that, had become famous as the years have gone on that I have thought have earned it. And 1999 was one of them. Russian Sleep Experiment, again, my favorite. Gateway to the Mind, I think, was one. And, they're really the ones that kind of are more adult in nature. Because, it's not like I'm going to be reading, was it Tales Doll or whatever. I'm going to be checking out, Gateway to the Mind, which is such a creepy story. And, hey, it doesn't hurt the fact that, or it doesn't help that I would, stay up at night and I'd read these damn things, or I'd have Creeps McFoster read them to me as well.
Yeah, that was my favorite thing to do. Like before I started to start my YouTube channel, that would be my favorite thing to do. But now when I haven't listened to like a real like a scary video in the longest time because I do it myself now.
Sure, yeah. You don't need to do it. You're just like, hey, and also partially it could be that you don't want to copy anyone's style.
That, and also because it's like I've had enough. You know what I mean? Because I upload a video a day, so the amount of time I spend making these videos is like a large portion of the day. And if I have to listen to scary stuff on my free time as well, I think I'll just go crazy. So on my free time, I try to watch like comedies. Just anything but like horror. Like if my friends are like, oh, let's watch a horror movie, I'm like, no, man. Like I'm not even scared of horror movies anymore because I basically know what they're doing. I'm like, okay, they're playing that music. If they took out the music, it wouldn't really be scary. I know that trick because I use it. You know what I mean?
You've become, in essence, a horror filmmaker. It's just that you're doing scary stories. You are you afraid in the dark? But without the camp, really. I mean, I've watched enough of these videos where it's like there was one on the Wendigo that you did a couple days ago where I'm like, okay, yeah, I understand this monster. I know what you're talking about. It's kind of interesting that there are these true stories that are coming out, but whatever. It's like that Until Dawn game was scary as hell, but the creature itself is kind of I kind of just looked at as kind of like a Bigfoot or a Loch Ness monster. Not that they don't exist, but kind of like a little outlandish.
I think because most of even those ones that I did, because I did 5 of those stories, it's never really confirmed that it was the Wendigo, but it had all the characteristics of a Wendigo.
Right.
And I think that's what makes, like, I had one before about skinwalkers. It's the same idea. Like, it's interesting because you don't really fully know about it yet. You know what I'm saying? I think that's kind of why those videos of mine tend to become a bit more popular. It's because people are like, man, this is like, it's like the boogeyman, but in the forest. Like, it has that kind of mystery around it, I think.
Sure, yeah.
as opposed to, like a Let's Not Meet. It's just like a person. But a Wendigo and a Skinwalker can take any form, shapeshift into anything, and that's why, like, for me at least, I find that really interesting, and I'll be doing a lot more of the Wendigo actually, or Skinwalker, or just monsters in general. Like, I want to go into there a bit more, I think.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think there's a treasure trove probably of stories about the Wendigo.
No one does it, and nobody does those kinds of stories. That's really weird to me, I think. I think people look at it as, like, as you said, maybe like the Bigfoot. They're like, I don't know.
Yeah. You'd think, for me, it's like, okay, ghosts. Like, yeah, I see ghosts. Yeah, I see what you're doing with that.
Yeah, we're just trying to get here.
It's not like, hey, and again, there I know some people who have sworn up and down they've seen these things. They've seen Bigfoot. They've seen, stuff like that. In the past, they're like, this is real. I haven't. I live in the woods. I haven't seen any big feet.
You live in the woods?
I live in on the brush, right next to the woods. But
okay.
So the ghosts, for me, it's like, it's totally more, and also it's just more popular, honestly. But looking at, because again, going back to the whole Asian horror stories,
yeah,
the videos that at least made me introduce me to you. I did a project long ago in high school where I was looking at the chronology, looking at the evolution of horror films in the United States. And I went from, the fact that the monsters came from Europe, looking at Dracula and the Wolfman and so on, or in Africa, like the Mummy. And then it would go into monsters from outer space that invade the body, and then so on and so forth, to slasher movies and, body horror and ghosts now. And have you noticed any evolution in horror films that you've noticed in Asian countries, like as you said, Hong Kong, or in Japan? Have you noticed anything like that?
I think Asian horror films, in my opinion, Asian horror films are dying down.
You think so? Why do you say that?
Well, I think one is because I haven't watched like a real Asian horror film in quite a while. Okay, if you're just talking about, let's just talk about Hong Kong. Hong Kong in general, all Hong Kong films are going down. And basically the past 10 years, if you're talking about Asian horror films, it would have to be Japan, Korea. Korea does good with like psychological horror.
They do. Old Boy.
But if you're talking about like real like ghost stories, and one thing too now is because China's such a big market. The thing with the filming in Asia is that all films are basically trying to get to China now, right? There's like however many people in China, it's like double the US market or something like that. If you can get into China, if your movie can get into the theaters in China.
Right.
But the thing with China is that they have this thing where they basically ban all ghost movies.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. So basically what China's doing now is that you can have a horror movie. You can have you can have a horror movie, a scary movie, okay? And you can market it as a ghost story, even like a ghost movie. But at the end of the movie, you have to tell the audience that there was no ghost. So let's say I do like a ghost movie or something. Throughout the whole movie, you think there's a ghost, okay? You think there was like supernatural shit going on. At the end of the movie, the main character has to have something like, oh, it was a dream, or oh my God, she actually has a mental disorder. Like they have to do that final twist back.
Wow.
Because they're trying to, I think, get their people to think that, okay, there is no ghost. They're trying to get that out of their heads, basically.
There's no such thing as ghosts. There's no such thing as all that.
So for a film, like a horror movie, to get into that market, they would basically have to do the same thing. They can't market it as like a straight, like, The Shining. Well, The Shining, not like they can't do like a Paranormal Activity in China. Sure. Because that's like fully a ghost, right? There's nothing psychological or anything about that. So I think that's kind of the direction of Asian horror films right now, where they kind of take it into a psychological level. And has it died down? A little bit. I mean, if you're talking about ghost movies, it's definitely died down a lot, in my opinion, because they don't want that. They don't want that there anymore.
That's truly a shame because, again, with Japan, mostly Japan. I mean, I think Japan is really the kind of the catalyst, the center of horror, J-horror. It has its own, subgenre.
Yeah.
And I think Korea does too, but all you needed were Ju-on and Ringu. That's all you need. I mean, there was Ichi the Killer. There were several others. There was the twins one. I forgot what that was called. The Tale of Two Girls or whatever.
That's a Korean one.
That's Korean. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, see, the thing is, I'm horribly racist.
Yeah. That was a Korean film. That was a Korean film.
Okay.
The girls one, yeah.
That and I can tell because that was much more psychological.
Mm-hmm.
It was much more psychological. But Ju-on and Ringu are two of the scariest movies I've ever seen.
Yeah, same.
And I mean, of course, then they made their American counterparts, and while I think they were okay, they were fine. But I don't know. So you have horror movies. I think that's very sad, honestly. With the decrease of all that's very sad. I mean, I think that horror movies are so important, so integral to to society in essence. They said there's stories that say like after a tragedy, people would not watch comedies or action movies; they'd be watching horror movies because that's kind of like how they would deal with it. Yeah,
to escape to another place, right? Kind of thing. Like
the way that I understand it is that they'd escape to some place that they either could empathize more with the characters, or it was like, well, at least we're not in this situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of messed up, but it's true. That's at least how I understand it. And I don't want to go off psychological on that, but honestly, and I guess horror like media has really shifted in the past 5-10 years from the big screen, from horror to video games. Horror video games are better now, first of all, than they ever have been, and they've also been more plentiful. There's so many. I mean, again with Slender, the 8 pages. I mean, it's kind of not scary at all after the first try, but it ushered in all these games, all these amazing horror experiences, and not just in the indie level, but on the big stage. With Until Dawn and with Alien Isolation and all those others. So, what is your you said earlier, you don't really try to surround yourself with horror as much as you used to, considering you have this channel that you do every single day. But are there any times that you play a horror game, or you kind of try to see what's going on over there?
Okay, I actually don't play games.
Oh, you don't? Okay. Well, hey.
But I watch YouTubers play games. So the like PewDiePie, Markiplier, like I watch those guys, like Five Nights at Freddy's. There was one where it was like a game from the deep web. I don't know if you know about that.
Was that the one about there's like screaming or whatever?
Yeah. There was like screaming sounds constantly in the background, kind of thing. But yeah, I watched them play horror games, and like the Five Nights at Freddy's, I think it's a pretty new concept in my opinion. Like I don't play games a lot, but just watching the game being played is quite interesting. How you can shift the camera views, and I mean you feel like you can't move. And you're in, like, you kind of feel like you're in a horror movie, because I think what's scary about horror in general is helplessness. The fact that that, holy shit, like, there's nothing I can do, and I can only hope that I don't die. Like, that's what's scary, right? If you were powerful and you had a sword or you had a lightsaber, then you wouldn't be afraid. You would go and fight them. It's a fight or flight, right? Horror movies is always about flight. It's always about running away from something. That's what's scary. So I think Five Nights at Freddy's was a pretty good concept, where you're immobilized basically in one spot, and your only option is to open and close doors to defend yourself against things from the outside, jump scares, screaming, stuff like that. So that's one game that I think that I think is a new direction or whatever. But I think that's one that I can kind of think it's quite special in all the horror games that I've seen.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, I haven't really been playing mini games at all lately, but when I was in school, and graduated in May. There was what was the big game out there then? There was there was Alien Isolation. That was of course a big one, but there was Outlast. And Outlast was, as you said, you feel completely helpless in a psychiatric hospital.
Oh shit!
That game. I had a friend who was hopped up on some things. He was how do I explain this in a way that won't get him in trouble? He was having some fun.
Like doing some substances.
He was doing some substances, and I wasn't, but he was. And I'm like, hey man, you want to play some Outlast? And he's usually just completely no. He played PT. At the beginning of my senior year, and he was just like, nope, can't do that. But I had him play Outlast, and I wish I had the live stream of that. I wish I had it recorded. Wish I did. It was historic. It was amazing.
Yeah.
But we would get 1 million views together. But you had mentioned there was that game, the screaming game. I don't know what it's called. I'm sad to say, but it looks terrifying. The Deep Web.
But the thing is, they found out that it was a hoax.
It was a hoax. You're absolutely right. It was the channel that originally had gameplay for it was the developer. The way that I understand it was.
Yo, man, but that's a successful host. Like they got PewDiePie to play it.
It's great marketing. Yeah, absolutely. It's great marketing. You get the biggest YouTuber in the world to play it. Yeah, probably Markiplier played it. Probably the most popular. But you have the Deep Web, and wow. Talk about real horror, honestly. I mean, Red Rooms, Hitmen.
Yo, I can tell you what, because I've done a couple of vids on Deep Web.
Yeah, you have.
And the thing is, wow, I couldn't even monetize my video, like the first one I did, because it was so graphic. YouTube had to basically say, you can't monetize this, because, there's they sent me an email. Like they never sent me a personal, someone wrote this. This wasn't like a automated email, but it was like someone from YouTube was like, okay, you have sexual content involving children, so there's no way you can monetize this video. And I was like, okay, that's fine. But it was to the point where I did so many Deep Web stuff that I lost sleep, because the worst thing was that I had to dig. I'm not just telling one Deep Web story. I told 30 or 40, and I had to dig for the worst ones, because there was ones where other people have done it already, and I had to dig for the worst Deep Web stories, in which I really I lost so much sleep during that period of time. I stopped doing Deep Web stories because I couldn't take it. I was like, this is no, man. I can't. I really a kid, people taking babies and using them as pillows to bash each other until the baby's head explodes. I'm I can't fucking talk about this anymore. I'll commit suicide or something.
Right.
I can't.
I mean, it just goes to show you that in the end, I mean, real horror is the biggest horror of them all. It's the scariest shit online is the real stuff, And anything that presents itself as real is automatically more scary than anything else, honestly. Yeah. There was a video from Corpse Husband, who I got to give a shout out. He's a great YouTuber.
I know the guy, man.
Well, hey, this is the thing. I want to try to get him on. But he did he did a video on what did he do it on? He did a video on the Hitman. How he became a hit, or how he was chased by a hitman, and then how he later became at least an employee of the same group. And the second part of the story, the first story was when he was being chased, was kind of a thriller. It was like, oh, this is cool. It's like some there's some North by Northwest, the Hitchcock movie. This is some cool stuff. This is exciting. The second video, when he talked about that, the guy who had, kidnapped, he had kidnapped some people, and, just the visceral nature of what was going on. I had to turn it off. I was like, this is the most disturbing thing I've ever heard. And whether or not it's true, again, it presents itself as that, and there's no proof against it being fake at all. And these all came from Reddit, these posts, these cryptic posts. But I mean, I don't know the deep web. I've never been on it myself.
Never. Same.
I got a
Never
Mac,
would.
so I couldn't even get on it in the first place.
Yo, I'll tell you this. After I narrated the deep web stuff, you know how the Mac has the webcam?
Yeah.
I covered it with tape. I was like, okay.
Oh, there are those stories about like the guy who was in
Yeah.
a chat and then they say I can see you because they can, they could hack into your system and use your webcam. Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah. I can't blame you. That is, those are videos. There are channels on YouTube.
Takedown Man?
Takedown Man, exactly. Takedown Man, who is the bravest, craziest man on YouTube.
Yeah.
Who just goes on there and not just kind of looks at the stuff like, oh, look at this crazy shit, like look at this depraved stuff. He not only does he report it, he lets him have it. He's like, what the hell is wrong with you guys? Man.
Allegedly with him is that he after he posted his videos, the police took down some websites like from his videos. Like they got information from his videos and some like pedophile, I think, websites got taken down or something like that. So he helped the police. That's what I heard. That's what people were saying. But
well, that's good. That's good. Well, hey, let's get off the deep web thing. Literally, the deep web stuff just makes me squirm. It really does.
It's depressing, man.
It's depressing. It's sad.
Depressing.
Hey, like we're gonna have some fun because actually next I want to talk to you about the documentary you made,
Cool.
where you went around Toronto.
Yeah.
And I was kind of anticipating. I'm like, this guy's got to do something like this. This guy's he talks about, he has these live streams where he talks about all this stuff, and it's like the guy's gotta jump in and and you did, so which is cool. Yeah. So what was the idea for that? Like why or what made you decide to finally make a documentary?
God, okay, this was a while back. Okay, I filmed it. I filmed it December 24th exactly. I remember that day because it was the day before Christmas, and the reason I wanted to do this because I've always wanted to do something on screen. I was doing voice acting for a long time, but I've always wanted to do something on screen. I was like, let's do this, and it's funny how you're talking about the live streams because that's kind of how I found my partner, Mike. So Mike is the other guy in the documentary.
Okay.
He's actually the main, if you would call it the main subject of the documentary even, because he allegedly can see ghosts.
Well, actually, yeah, I was going to say, for the uninitiated, for the people who haven't seen it, what is this documentary? What do you do?
So basically, because I live in Toronto, and Toronto is an old city, I wanted to, me and my friend, basically go around the city, and because my friend could see ghosts, to go around to try to see ghosts, to see if he can see anything, to see if we can catch like something on camera and stuff like that. But I actually found him through my live stream. He was a big fan of mine, and then he would be on my live streams telling stories about how he would see stuff. And then I was like, hey, dude, you want to help me out? Like, do you want to do this actually? Because I've always wanted to do it, but because I've never experienced it myself. If I were just gonna do it by myself, or me and my friend were gonna do it, we were just gonna be like walking in the dark, right? Because we can't see anything. Mm-hmm. And I didn't want to do that kind of show where I would kind of feel something and try to make it scary when it's not. And even though, I didn't want to do that. So I wanted to find someone that was genuinely able to see this kind of stuff. So I talked to Mike and I was like, hey, dude, you want to help me out? He's like, sure, I'd be honored to or whatnot. And then, that's what we did. Well, the plan was we were to go to, I think, four locations supposedly haunted trying to see if you can see anything. And the filming of the documentary was pretty crazy too, because in the beginning, first half of the day of the first day of filming, we didn't catch anything. And I was kind of disappointed because we had basically been to one of the, most haunted locations in Toronto. And my friend saw nothing. He could feel nothing. And I was like, oh shit, this is going to be really bad. Like, this is going to be horrible. Like, this is just going to be us pointing at nothing, basically, right? It's going to turn into the thing I didn't want it to turn into. But then the thing was, he started to see it after it got dark in random places. And then that's when I realized that I kind of had a show going on. Like, I was like, okay, this can be turned into something. And I actually hired a camera guy as well. And it was the three of us. And the main point of the documentary, like the climax, is when we went to this place called Kirby Road. And it had a whole history about it, about how some girl, her dad was a KKK member, but her boyfriend was a black guy, that didn't really mix well. And then, there was a lot of murdering and death and stuff like that going on. And, there's ghosts that haunt the place. And that was really, I guess, the climax of my documentary, if you watch it, was the last part where my friend Mike saw that little girl walking towards us. I didn't see anything. Nothing was caught on camera, but just his expression and the chills and feels I was getting off of my friend, I knew he was telling the truth. I mean, some people watch it, they're like, oh my God, it's just your friend pointing at nothing. But if you were there, you would genuinely know. Like me and the camera guy is a skeptic, okay? But after we filmed that and we were driving in my car, he was like silent for an hour. So like there was something going on there. And then we saw like, I think was the dad of the little girl. Like that's what my friend was telling me at that moment. So that was a documentary. I turned it into a documentary. It was good. I mean, but we're doing a part 2 soon as well. So you guys stay tuned for that.
I'm looking forward to it. And I was gonna say, if you ever come down here, if you ever come down to New York, if you ever come down to Connecticut, we got. I'm down to do one of those.
Yeah, man. Yeah, for sure. Like a lot of my friends, like Eden and Corpse Husband.
Mm-hmm.
Those guys were like, "Hey, man, come to the States or something, and then we can film." I'm like, "Yeah, man, one day, like, cause I have school and all that stuff." But
sure,
if I could, I just get a camera guy, do like a little road trip thing. Come to you guys, film you guys for a bit, try to go to haunted places. That'd be awesome. I would be down to do that.
I'm so much about this whole thing, so much about the, like going into like places. Maybe I just like,
urban exploration.
There you go. Yeah, there you go. That's a good way of saying it. I'm an urban explorer.
Yeah, we are. We're not breaking into places. No.
Well, I
abandoned.
There's no one in here. This isn't breaking it in.
There wasn't anybody, man. There wasn't anybody in there.
Exactly. Well, I will tell you this. I went to college at a supposedly haunted place, and I never saw anything myself. I was kind of bummed out when I graduated. I'm like, damn.
Really?
no ghosts.
Wow.
But so we have a castle on campus. And I'm in New York.
Of course you guys do.
Right? Exactly.
Castle.
It's a castle. It's one of the only castles in New York, and I go there. And it was the quick thing. So it was the first house in Westchester County that had electricity in it, which I always thought. I was a history major, so I was always interested in that kind of stuff.
Cool.
So we had a haunted castle, supposedly haunted castle. There was apparently this woman who fell down the main staircase. As all main staircases have in common, they've always killed somebody. But we had someone who died there. We had some other stuff, and they're not even reports that are necessarily refutable. Like we don't even have proof that these even happened. But there was also this chapel. Now there are these two chapels. There's the main, big chapel that the graduation was in, and regular mass, and then there was this broken down, stingy, disgusting chapel. And I was friends with a lot of guys a lot of them were skeptics, and I'm a believer. I've seen a ghost before.
You've seen a ghost before?
I've seen it a couple times. And actually, if you do that show on Friday, if I'm able to get on, I'd love to tell you that story. But I'm like, yeah, I gotta. And I'm not afraid of ghosts. I really like. I'm like, yeah, it's kind of cool. I'm more interested in it. And call me crazy, but it was around Hurricane Sandy, Superstorm Sandy. It was my sophomore year.
Oh.
And we were like, let's screw around. We're gonna go around the campus and let's see if there are any ghosts. There's electricity in the air, so maybe we'll dredge something up. Maybe we'll have we had some guy who had an EMF detector. Like I'm not even making this up. He actually had like a legit one because he was a ghost hunter. He was a senior.
Nice.
And I had a recorder app that probably wasn't even close to the specifications of an EMP detector. But regardless, we were walking around, and it was windy. There were trees that were, they should have been falling down all around us. And we went to the top of the castle, which did take. Luckily, there was one an unlocked lock, so there was no breaking or entering.
Yeah,
You
for
know,
sure,
so,
for sure. Of course, Andrew. Of course.
If you ever do urban exploration, I implore you to never break any locks.
Yeah, true. No, that's true though. That is
No,
true.
but really, I know that's if you get anything from this show, get that. There you go. But we had a friend. We had a friend. He was kind of a kid that wasn't really sure about it. He was like, "Oh, I don't really know, guys. I don't really know if I want to go up there." You know, considering the fact that he's already a conspirator anyway.
Yeah.
And we're like, all right, say that's fine, man. We'll tell you if there's no one up on the roof, because he was concerned that there was gonna be someone on the roof waiting for us, which during a hurricane, obviously is a possibility, right? So there were like 7 of us, and we went up to the top. And we're like, oh, this is the coolest thing ever, we're on top of a castle, we can see New York in the distance, New York City in the distance, and we're like, hey, this isn't the worst storm in the world, all of a sudden this tree falls down, not paranormal, I'm not saying a ghost knocked it down,
Yeah.
It was like a ghost giant, it took his axe and decided to cut this tree down. No, but we all of a sudden we heard a scream from the bottom of the stairs, and I'm like, oh, okay, this kid, like, probably is worried. He probably heard someone, probably heard like a security guard walk in or whatever, and he's probably like really concerned now, or he's given himself up. I don't know. So one of my friends, he was actually concerned, and he walked down, and I was kind of like, okay, and all right, come on, I want to enjoy this before until like an RA or whatever comes up and ruins our fun. But our friend came back up after he had checked on our other friend, and he was like, he is pale right now. Like, he's pale, and he's mumbling right now. And we're like, oh, come on, he's faking it. And but I was kind of like, okay, this is kind of weird. So I decided to go down, and I saw him, and I've never seen this face. I've never seen this kind of matter. I've never seen this reaction to anything before. He was almost catatonic. So I kind of waved my hand in front of his face, and I'm like, hey man, you okay? You okay? You doing all right? And he kind of turned his head, and he's like, we gotta go. We gotta go right now. And I'm like, well, what's going on? Because I actually was getting concerned. I was kind of like, is this guy okay? Like, did you see, someone maybe intruding? Probably something. At the time it made sense, but honestly, that never happens. And he's like, no, I got pushed. Got pushed. What are you talking about? And he's like, I felt 2 handprints, 5 digits on
each hand,
and I got pushed. And I was like, and my other friends, they had since come down, and they kind of weren't really believing him. They were kind of like, oh, it's kind of whatever. One of them, he had the EMF detector, and he went to the back, and he's like, oh my god, like, no, like, it went from whatever it was like a 3, because the electricity in the air, and he went over to my friend's back, and it was like a 7.
Yeah,
it was like a 6 or a 7. He was like, no, guys, seriously, like, something must have happened. So we bounced. We got out of there. And but my friend, to his credit, he was like, I want to keep going. I want to
keep going back.
Not back to the castle. But he's like, I want to, because the next plan was we were going to go to this chapel. It's called the Lady Chapel, and it was like a nunnery. Before it was, because it used to be a Catholic college, and then it became just an ordinary college, and it was a nunnery over there. We're like, okay, so let's go and have some fun. It's my friend was kind of like, okay, something's happened, but I'm not deterred. That scared the crap out of me, but I don't want to ruin your guys' fun. And we're like, okay, wait, we really appreciate that. That's really cool of you. So we walked over to this chapel, and again, considering the fact that on my graduation day I was completely disappointed that nothing had happened to me, it was mostly because of this night, because things started happening to everybody else.
Afterwards.
Well, immediately afterwards, and also when we got to this chapel. So we got to this chapel, and the basement door, I'm not making this up, the basement door, usually locked, was not locked this day. Most likely because they were putting things in storage, so it made sense to me. And there were boxes and stuff, probably. Like, we don't want to get these ruined by, obviously the storm. So we walked in, and my friends just like, we're all very silent. We're all just kind of like looking around, like, oh, this is kind of cool, kind of just giraffe-y and kind of drippy and stuff like that. My friend was like, oh, what was that? And he turned his head, and he was like, oh, one of you guys wanted to ask me something? And we're like, no, what are you talking about? And he was the guy who had the EMF detector, and he looked over and he's like, oh, now I'm hearing things. now I'm hearing some stuff, but nothing else really happened that night. We did it a couple more times. We also went underneath the castle. That was pretty cool. But we had some fun with that, and that was always a good experience. And we also, I think I had the camera, so I was using my phone as a camera. So somewhere in the cloud, you can see us just scaring ourselves silly. But I don't know, man. Paranormal investigating is a fun thing to do. If I ever had time, I would absolutely do it more often. Yeah. And that's probably why I watch all these ghost shows, to be honest.
Because you don't have the time to go yourself.
I don't. Ever since I got a job now, I'm actually doing adult things, which scares me. But it's,
you have a girlfriend yet?
Well, not right now. Not right now.
But you've done other adult things before.
I've done other adult things, and I've done adult things in the past. What is this podcast? Actually, I wanted to continue on this whole paranormal exploration kind of stuff. And about this documentary, you said you have a part 2 that's coming out.
Yeah, we filmed it. We filmed it. It's I still have to edit it though.
Okay, is it Toronto?
It is Toronto. I mean, it's the only place we can go to.
Sure.
And it's so big that we can probably film like 20 episodes there, and it'll be okay. But this one, I was kind of disappointed. I'll be honest, like a tiny bit. Like, it was a fun time. It was a good time. The story was good. Everything was good. But because this time my friend couldn't make it, like Mike, the guy who can see ghosts, couldn't make it, I had to just drag some of my other friends there, and none of them could see paranormal stuff. So it turned into more of just an urban exploration kind of story than, an actual like paranormal documentary. Because the last one, even though we couldn't catch anything on camera, my friend was like, okay, there is a woman there looking at us right now, and he would describe it, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But for this one, it felt more like we were going to a historical setting and telling a story and looking around and filming stuff. Like, that's what the second one feels like. More
right.
And the way that I think that's kind of why it's taking me longer to make the movie, the video itself, is because I have to make it in a way, because there's no climactic moment in it. Like, there's no like, oh my god, like there's a ghost moment. The way I have to film it and edit it and cut it in has to be more stylized, if you will, or there has to be more technique there to make it an interesting watch.
Right.
So that's kind of why it's been taking a while. I filmed it like months ago. Like, I filmed it in January. So it's been 2 months now for me to just edit it. So
so with these documentaries, it's obviously more content for all your fans, or for everyone to watch. But is it also like, when I watch Ghost Adventures, for instance, his whole thing is like, I never believed in ghosts until I came face to face with one. And now he's on a quest, all that stuff to get you on video. And the fact that you've never seen a ghost, or you've never had a bona fide experience that has really, been the catalyst, as we've talked about at the beginning. What are you trying to find? Is it just more content? Is it just kind of like you going around, with some friends, trying to find something? What are you aiming for?
Okay, I think there's 2 things. The first one is, I think I said this in the beginning of my first documentary. I was like, as a horror narrator on YouTube, and I introduced myself, I'm like, but I've never seen a ghost. And I'm like, well, is it really true? I mean, I think it's true. In my mind, I probably know it's true. But because I've never experienced something similar, I can't really say that. So I was like, okay, so my quest is to go around to see if I can experience it for myself. And the second reason is what you said, basically, more content for people.
Right.
I like hosting. I like hosting, I guess. So it feels good to host a show on camera, be able to do that on my own channel, and have people actually watch it. And people enjoy it. Like they loved it actually. They're like, "Go, man, do more of this, man." I'd rather you do this than like some of the other just straight up three true ghost stories all the time. Like
Right.
it's boring. Like it get boring. It gets boring. So yeah, I mean, those are the two main reasons, I think.
And it must, honestly, and it must get boring to you at some point where you're just like, okay, today I'm doing three true stories, three true, stalker stories, or three true, Wendigo stories, or three true ghost stories. I mean, hey, you're learning, you're becoming more engrossed in the medium, but at the same time, you're probably like, I want to do some other stuff. I want to do some different things. I want to really explore, and also. I'm just kind of guessing, considering, the conversation we've had. It does seem that you are interested to even experience something. Maybe not as validation, but as something where it's like, yeah, I did see something, and this is my story. This is what happened, and here's me maybe seeing it live as it happens.
Well, okay, like I actually, in the deep down bottom of my heart, I don't want to see anything because I'm terrified. But
Okay.
if I had to, okay, if I friggin' had to, it would be best on camera, because then it would be worth something.
Sure.
Then yeah, right. I mean, if I really had to go through such a tragedy, because people say that once you see it once, like you it keeps coming back and shit. So if I had to experience
It's like the herpes.
yes, please let me put it on camera, so at least I get something out of it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it reminds me of the Ghost Adventures documentary that came out several years ago, where the main kind of the climax of that video, the climax of that movie, was when that brick was thrown.
Mm-hmm.
And my God, I mean, seeing that live was insane. Was it just insanity?
Yeah.
And having seen your documentary when Mike saw that woman,
Mm-hmm.
remembering it now, it was like, man, like that works. That's cool. Like that's interesting. I kind of wish that we saw it, but at the same time, it's like, well, there is a reaction. There is something that's going on. The story with the cameraman, that's very funny. His whole life is just like, whoa.
No, I mean, now when I'm like, because I still talk to him and stuff. Now he looks back. He's like, I mean, he says that he's like, no, it's probably fake or right.
Sure.
Like he's reverted back to that skeptic. But during that moment with that whole atmosphere, and it was we were on a highway at nighttime, in an abandoned barn in the middle of the road, and then you say there's a ghost walking towards you. Like anybody would be startled at that moment. So I think that moment, the fact that we captured that moment was the best thing ever, in my opinion. And I mean, I if it was true or not, okay, of course we hope that it's true, but that's, in my opinion, not the selling point or the main thing to take out from the documentary. The main thing is the history and the atmosphere is what I wanted to create. Because if I wanted to do like a real scary story, I could have just made like an independent movie or something, right? And put real ghosts in there. But it's just the realness, I think, is what you like too, is how real it was, right? There was no bricks flying around, there was no screaming, there was nothing like that. But you can tell that if you were there, you could tell it was genuine and not fake. I mean, I'm not sure how it translates over in the film, but the three of us, on like the deep down bottom of our hearts, we know that it was real.
Well, you're absolutely right. The translation. Hey, when I try to tell a story, when I watch someone tell a story that happened to them, you're not there. You weren't there at the time.
Yeah.
You don't know what their motive is, and you don't know any of the what was it out? What was was it dark? What was going on like in the atmosphere, the environment? What could it have been? Because I am a believing skeptic, because there are things that I've heard. There's this podcast that's been out for several years called Real Ghost Stories Online.
Yeah, I've seen that. That's actually what got me to do my live stream.
Is that right? Is that
yeah,
right?
Man.
Well,
that's a killer idea. That's a great idea.
There's absolutely a similar. I love hearing ghost stories from people, and there's sometimes, quite frankly, where it's like, I don't really know how I can believe you, because sometimes there's some trigger words that when I hear, I'm like, okay, guardian angel. I'm not saying they don't exist. I'm just saying, okay, you're adding your own kind of thing to it, which everyone does, but okay. Then they say, it must have been so and so who got killed here at such and such time.
Yeah.
And then there was also the idea of a person being haunted. I'm kind of like, okay, that's interesting. I know the idea of an object being haunted. I mean, Zach Baggins of Ghost Adventures has bought Dr. Kevorkian's death cab or whatever, and he bought, was it Dahmer's plate that he used to eat people with.
Why would you want that?
I'd have to ask Zach, and I don't know if you know him, but I don't know if I can reach him to ask him that very question. But he said a lot of these kinds of things where it's like, okay, objects can obviously haunted. Robert the doll, for instance, which when I first heard that story as a sophomore in college, and it scared the crap out of me.
It terrified me to no end.
Yeah, I was like, oh god, like that is
when that first came out.
Exactly. That
dolls
got me.
General, really, but
man. Dolls are. Zach Baggins did a podcast with Chris Jericho, and it was a great podcast. I really recommend it. And he was talking about dolls, and he talked about the island of the dolls in Mexico.
Yeah, I've heard about that.
If there's a place that I do not want to find myself in, it's the island of the dolls.
Man. But if I can go there and just film an episode, that'd be fun.
Actually, I was going to ask you that. What is the dream location? You have a blank check. You can go anywhere in the world. Where are you going to go? Where are you going with the camera?
God. I want to see, like, Egypt. I don't know why.
Egypt?
Because it's just a place where there's a lot of history to it. I feel that those places, I mean, it's not just, I'm not going to do this to find ghosts per se, but if you just give me a blank check. I want to do a documentary that has a great story behind it. So a place with history, with a really good story behind it, where I can take, some paranormal investigators or some people that are inclined to the paranormal to there and try to just film the place and see if they can see anything. And the thing with that is that even if they don't see anything, the history behind it is enough for me to tell a great story. I'm thinking either maybe like the Niles of Egypt or like the Great Wall in China. Like there's no like super creepy place that I want to go, but just places with a lot of history in my opinion can always have great stories.
Absolutely. There are parts of that wall in China that people just don't go to. And not only that, but you can do some mad urban exploring over there. And you're just like, man, like this is
thousands, like tens of thousands of people have, when they built that friggin' wall, like tens of thousands of people have sacrificed their lives.
Yeah.
Back in the day, the slave, like slaves and those kinds of people, like they just killed them on there. Like there's bones buried beneath those grounds. So there must be at least something there.
Yeah, it's creepy as hell. My personal one would be the Myrtles Plantation. That is a place. If there's a place in this world, if hauntings are not just mass hallucinations by the entire world, and these things actually are real, and again, I am inclined to believe that the Myrtles Plantation is probably the top of my list.
Or one I just thought of actually. I don't know if you heard about it. Skinwalker Ranch.
What is that?
You've never heard of that?
What is that? I've never heard of that.
You've never heard? Really? Okay, so basically it's I'm not even sure where it is. Basically, it has a really messed up story. It's basically a ranch, like a farm or a ranch that was, it wasn't haunted per se, but there was just a lot of crazy stuff going around there. Like that general area, that field had like, weird animals walking around, and it's not just about ghosts either. It had like people were talking about like UFOs.
Okay, is this the one where they have those weird walking, like the videos of weird walking animals?
Yeah, like the dog, like a dog that walks on two legs in the forest, and just the whole place was weird. But the thing is, a really wealthy man bought it afterwards, and they turned it into some kind of like a park or something like that. I'm not sure if you can go film there, but that's just what I thought of right now. If I could get a blank check, I would probably go there as well because, I mean, as much as I love ghosts, I really like am interested in like extraterrestrials as well.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, so
Okay.
I actually, Ancient Aliens, the show.
Oh, yes.
I used
Of
to,
course.
I've watched like every episode of that.
Man, okay, yeah. Well, hey, aliens, that whole thing. I mean, I know next to nothing about any of that stuff, but there are definitely things that it's not just ghosts. That paranormal is not just ghosts. Paranormal is ghosts. It's cryptids. It's aliens. It's sea creatures.
Yeah, yeah.
It's all that, and you can get lost in only one of those sections for years.
Mm-hmm.
And there are people who are Bigfoot experts. I mean, that's fascinating. There are people who are experts in in animals that were once thought to be fake, like the giant squid. I mean, it's definitely a science. I will say that. How much of a science, I'm not entirely sure, but there are enough people where I think we could, in 20 years we'll be having the same discussion. We'll be like, hey, look, looking at having a discussion with a Bigfoot or talking to Coco the Bigfoot or anything. I don't know, but there are the whole field, the whole entire the genre of the paranormal is so fascinating. Have you been thinking about? Have you done any alien videos, by the way?
I have. I think in the very beginning when I was actually there was a phase in my YouTube career where I'm not sure if you noticed. I think that was around the time where you found me with the Asian ghost stories. There was a time in my videos where like I was really blowing up.
Okay.
And
yeah.
I did a video called 16 Alien and Extraterrestrial Stories. And I've actually, I mean, that one was okay. But besides that one, I've done some other ones on aliens. Like, I would consider the one I did on Indigo Children an alien story. I'm not sure if you know
I
what
remember that one, yeah.
I consider those ones just anything not from this world alien stories. And I've done a bunch of them, actually. Not a lot of people... I think my crowd doesn't really get it too much. They're still more interested in like the let's not meet stories, in my opinion. But
yeah.
But I would love to do more of aliens because that's like a personal interest of mine, like a really powerful interest of mine. Like you don't know how much time I spent, online looking at testimonies of people allegedly being captured by reptilians or greys or, having been taken up from their beds into a spaceship and having their eyes removed or something like that. Like I've spent hours looking at that stuff because it's so fascinating. Like for me, I think I've always been someone who wants to understand how the world is. And I think by understanding aliens and things beyond our control is a good way to find out what our meaning of life is. I know this is kind of getting deep and stuff, but it's like a whole different level than ghosts and stalkers, in my opinion. Like, if you understand what they want and what they think, then that's kind of like the direction that we're headed in my opinion.
Sure. I mean, for me, there are two kinds of ghosts. They're the ghosts that you see and you're terrified of, or you're interested in. You're like, oh, look at that! Like, there's a woman there, or there's a mist, or there's a shadow person, or there's an EVP. And then there's the ghosts of the past. There's history.
Yeah.
There's, me reading the Gettysburg Address, or me reading a section of whatever, me reading a section of the Constitution or whatever it is. Any historical document, those are the ghosts of the past. They're the echoes of the past. And no one can disprove those because those are absolutely correct. Yeah. And see, this is also just me trying to get deeper than you are. But,
no, I mean, I like these kinds of. I like these kinds. I think understanding the paranormal is understanding life as well, in my opinion. Because how can you say that there's nothing beyond what we have here, right? If you can understand what's beyond us, then maybe you can understand why we're here in the first place.
The notion that we are the only people is the most.
Arrogant.
It's just the most insane thing I've ever heard.
I mean, yeah, we are one little particle in this whole game, you know? How would you know what this? I mean, I'm not religious in any way. I don't believe, you know, I just don't believe in religion really, but I believe that there was a higher being that created that has a plan, you know. I'm not sure what it is. I'm not saying, oh man, there's a heaven, there's a hell, there's a reincarnation. I'm not saying anything like that, but I'm saying, dude, there is something beyond us. And I think one of our drives and our goals in life, besides money, besides happiness, health, wealth, is to understand what we're trying to do here. Like the end game, you know, what's the final thing, in my opinion. That's just for me. Like, I love to think about this kind of stuff. That's why I like aliens and stuff.
There's obviously gotta be something greater than ourselves. If there is something, if we are the greatest that life can be, then quite frankly, life is overrated. You know, it's just like, wow, like we're the best that, you know, biology could make. I mean, I find that absolutely insane.
Yeah.
But and again, as you said, it's more just the fun of it. Hey, I don't look at you know, looking at ghost videos, looking at what are those the cameras or whatever, trying to they're like, oh, look at this DVD fall down and the guy reacting and all that stuff. Like, I look at that as fun, but I also look at it as a glimpse of just how vast humanity is, and just how fast life or even anything is. I mean, there's not a word that you can describe that encapsulates both humans and whatever the hell is going on with ghosts and all that stuff. It's such a deep concept that I don't think we'll ever figure it out. And that's frustrating, but it's also fascinating.
I hope that before I die, and I'm not gonna try to sound arrogant or whatever, but I hope that before I die, there's some way I can figure out. I can figure it out. Like that. That's why, like, you know, how people talk about like the Illuminati and stuff like that. I hope that one day I'll be in a position where I can figure out what the master plan behind all of this is. That's just my opinion. Like, I want to find that. Like, I think I'm kind of like, I love to explore. Like, that's why I love to go traveling. It's because I love to explore shit. And I think that my mentality towards, you know, life and, you know, why am I here? What is the end game? What is the highest person thinking? Like that's always something I want to go and explore and find out for myself.
Well, that's a great purpose. It really is. And I have one last thing to ask you.
Yeah.
And it's about the live streams.
Yes.
And this probably a quick answer. You've been doing this. How long have you been doing live streams?
Oh, Jesus Christ. For 6 months, I think.
And in that time, you've heard probably numerous stories and
I know what you're gonna ask.
And all that stuff. You know what I'm gonna ask. What is the one that has, you know, kept you awake? Kind of, not in the sense of it's being scary.
Okay.
Or maybe it is. But what is the one that made you rethink this whole thing?
Okay. I thought you were gonna ask, is there one where I thought it was fake?
No, wait. I don't want to think. I don't want to be like that. I honestly, I want to end it up with.
There's been some.
Have there been one? Okay. Well, if you want to answer that too, I mean, that's
no. I'll put it out there.
Okay.
The ones, and I'm trying not to be prejudiced. Okay, but there's been a bunch of kids, you know, 11 to 13-year-olds, who's called my channel, who's been on there, and they just tell the most outrageous stories, and then it's like. I try to, you know, I try to be polite to these guys. I'm like, oh yeah, right, okay, and I probe them on their story. Like, there's one where he said his sister was abducted by aliens. Okay. And she came back after like a month or something, and she was like 16. I'm like, dude, what the fuck? Did you guys like call the cops? He's like, no, we didn't call the cops. I'm like, did you tell your parents? He's like, no, I didn't tell them, but they were asleep. I'm like, and then what happened? And then she ran away like the next day or what? I'm like, what? And the kid was like this 11-year-old kid. And yeah, and there would just be people like that, or the same 11-year-old kid would keep coming on and telling another thing that happened to him, another thing. Oh my God, now this guy has a machine gun, and it's like, like, you know what? and then okay, I'll say this. I'm sorry, I'm taking up a lot of your airtime.
No, it's all good.
But recently there was there was an incident where people were saying I was being rude to a kid or something like that. And okay, maybe I was a little bit. I mean, I'm not sure how your interviews go, but usually for my live streams, because there's like a million things going on at once, sometimes you do get kind of, agitated, just a little bit, okay? Because you have to deal with the chat, and then you have to send links, and you have to also do the interview, basically, right? And sometimes when people are speaking, you're not really understanding what they're saying, and they're not being very clear, and they're really shy. It's like you try to, hey, can you speed it up, or can you explain yourself a little bit better, dude?
Right.
And I think that's what, and it translated into me being very arrogant. As it's like, oh my god, people were like, oh my god, you only have 30K subs. What? Who do you don't have enough to be acting that way? And it's like, it's not because I'm an arrogant guy. It's because some of these 13-year-old kids who call up here, one, a lot of them are fake, and number two, the way they express themselves isn't really the best. And dude, I got a show to run, man. I got a time limit. I got other people wanting to come in, and you're here with this extraordinary story that may or may not be fake, and I mean, that's kind of what it translated into, I think. And but I've definitely, like, I apologized afterwards. I was like, okay, maybe I was being a little bit rude to the kid. I wasn't trying to be. I was just a bit, I was dealing with many things at once. It was a stressful situation. And I've had past experiences where, people have come in with obviously fake stories, and that's kind of why.
Sure. And also it hogs the mic from people who
it does.
Truly have stories who are just like, I want to tell you.
It wastes everybody's time. It wastes everybody's time, and the kid is like probably, I mean, they're 13, so they're not going to understand the importance of time yet, I guess.
Sure.
But they're going to be telling their friends the next morning at school, yo, man, I was on YouTube and I pranked this guy. He thinks he's so smart, man. You know what I mean? I can see that happening,
Right. I absolutely. I mean, I could hear that conversation in my head. It's like, oh, you just pranked this guy. I was having fun.
I was a bullshit story, man.
Exactly. I was telling the story about. I essentially retold the plot of Terminator.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And so that's what people get pissed. We're like, yo, this is like a plot of a movie. Like he's talking about.
Yeah, you're actually talking about like the last episode of Danny Phantom. Come on. Let's go.
Okay, that's good.
But
your question was what was one that's kept me up at night, right?
Yeah, just, and again, not one that's necessarily scary, but one that really made you think.
There's actually two of them. Okay, there's one that's funny. Okay, that because I do videos on ghost sex.
You have, yeah. Those are my favorites.
No, when you were talking about, not believing in certain stories and some being over the top, those are the ones I was kind of thinking of. Okay, I don't believe in every single one, maybe, but I like to believe they're true, okay? So that's why I narrate them. But there was a girl, she called in, and we were ecstatic. Like, Corpse Husband was there too. Eden was there. I was there. We were all like we couldn't contain ourselves. We were like, holy shit, because her story was that she bought this ring from eBay that allegedly promoted itself as a ring that has a spirit attached to it. And when she got the ring, she goes home and she, falls asleep or whatnot, and then she gets, she starts having sex with a ghost. And then afterwards, she's telling us this, and we're like, dude, so what'd you do with the ring? And she's like, well, I don't want to, have relations with the ghost anymore, so I sent it to my friend. Friend? So yeah, I'm like, but did you tell her like about the situation? She's like, no, I didn't tell her anything. I'm like, so she's gonna get like fucked by a ghost, and it's gonna be on you, man. Like, so, and then she called again afterwards, the same person telling like other stories about her life. But that was one where I found, okay, this is really epic, and I think it's one that I'll always remember. Like,
I can't see why not.
Yeah, like this, because like I narrate ghost sex, and I'm like, okay, like, but that's gonna be like such a small population. No one's ever gonna talk about that on my stream. And we joked about it too, that somebody was gonna call in talking about ghost sex, but that was the only one, and I was like, what the hell? Like, Second one, that I think it was the scariest moment I've had on the live stream. One where I think the girl was talking about how her house was haunted and there was a demon, and almost till the end of her story where she was about to say goodbye or something, her water bottle exploded or something like that. And we all heard it. Like we all heard it on the stream. So it was just a random pop. Like we're talking blah, 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 boom. And then we're like, what the fuck? And then she was like, oh my God. And then she just leaves the stream.
Oh, God.
And we were all stunned. We were all like that was the only time there was dead air on my stream, because I was like, what the fuck just happened? And I had chills all over my body.
I got goosebumps right now.
And then afterwards, because we have a medium in our crew, she talked to her about it, and then they did some cleansing or something like that. But on the same night as well, there was one talking about a ghost in her house, and then suddenly her cross with Jesus Christ dropped. And we all heard it. It was like, boom!
Oh my God. Well, actually, let me just, I want to interject. Was that the video? I remember I was looking through your videos before we did this, and there was a video, I haven't watched it yet, but I'm going to. Was after I read the caption, it was that there was a ghost that had been, you would either heard a ghost or someone had seen a ghost, or there was some sort of experience during the chat.
Yeah, I think I named it "True Ghost Caught on Camera" or something.
I think yeah.
Caught on tape, and then the thumbnail was a tape recorder or something.
Yes, that's it.
Okay, yeah. So basically, just click to that. If you click to the exact minutes, I think it was 1 hour and 30 minutes or something. It says it on the title as well. That's when the water bottle exploded. And then if you watch a bit, the story right after that is the one where the Jesus cross falls. But they're two different people though. And then it was to the point where my co-hosts were like, "Hey, do you want to stop? Let's just do Q&A. You want to stop this early tonight? Like, can we keep going? Like, I'm scared we're opening up doors that are, supposed to be closed." But then, we kept doing it. And yeah, that was really like the most horrifying. I was scared. Like, I was having dinner after I finished my stream, and my mom was like, "Hey, you look really bad." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm like really," and sleep that night wasn't too easy, to be honest. After that was the only time, I think, in all my YouTube career, I think that was the only time, besides the deep web stuff, that was the only time I was like, okay, I'm having trouble sleeping because of my channel, was that night.
Man. Well, that's crazy. I definitely got to get on one of these. Maybe I'll be a catalyst. Maybe something will happen when I'm on there.
yo, yeah, because you said you saw some stuff too, so you should come on.
Yeah, I'd love to. I've saved some stories. I'll get on yours. Yeah, absolutely.
And then I can tell people about your website and the stuff that you're doing.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem.
And you said, when's your show? Well, actually, let's do the plugs now. When is your show? When are your shows? You do one on Wednesday, one on Friday.
Yeah.
And then just tell people about your channel, and then we'll get on out of here.
All right. Okay. Basically, HORRORSTUDIO1, HORROR Studio, and then the number 1. It's all one word. And I also have a singing channel called Haley. That's my name, where I sing songs. Subscribe to both if you can. Both of my shows, my live streams. The one on Wednesday, I switched it to 6 p.m. actually, because a lot of my fans from England, they said that when I do streams at 8 p.m. in Toronto, it's like 2 in the morning for them.
Right.
Okay. So I'm like, okay, so I'll do it at 6. And actually, it's been working out pretty well. There's been a lot of people from there was someone from Finland today that came on. So that's Finland. Yeah, that's pretty interesting.
That's cool.
So 6 p.m. on a Wednesday, Toronto time, Toronto Eastern time. For the ones on Friday is 8 p.m. Toronto Eastern time. So basically, come send me your email at horrorstudio1@gmail.com with a blank email, and I'll send you the link if you have any stories. It could be ghosts, creepy shit, stalker stories, near-death experiences, anything you like, basically.
Great. Well, and by the way, one last shout-out. This shout-out goes to Twitter, because without Twitter, I would not have been able to get this thing going on. So
yeah.
So I'm going to call you Haley. So Haley, thank you so much for being on. You're the man. And I'll definitely be on. I'll shoot for this Friday. I'll send you an email, and we'll do this.
Yeah. No, but even if you don't come this Friday, that's fine. But I hope to see you then.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm stoked for this.
And that was it. Thank you again so much to Haley for being on the show. Again, check him out on YouTube, Horror Studio 1. Find him on Twitter at Haley Chong. Or just search Horror Studio 1. Find me again at I Found Andrew. Thank you so much for listening. I won't keep up any more of your time. We're at about an hour, 40 minutes. This was a long interview. I hope you guys had a good time. I hope you learned something. Or if you didn't learn something, I hope you were entertained at least. Hold up for next week. Hold up for next week, because next week we got a great interview. I'm not going to tell you right now, but I will reveal that person, the person I'm interviewing on Twitter tomorrow. So be sure to check that out. Thank you so much for listening, and I am out. Peace!